All right. So good morning, everybody. Looks like a light crowd today, but that's okay. There's still tons to talk about. Oh my goodness. It has been so busy, and I don't know that we'll see it slow down anytime soon. So um I think it's Tuesday, isn't it? Happy Tuesday to everybody. I have to check. It seems like it's all a blur anymore. Ever since COVID, it's like the whole structure of a work week and weekends, and it's all a blur. So uh, anyway, Harney County did submit an application for BTAP, and so we they were supposed to let everybody know by Friday if there were problems with the upload of the application, and we didn't get notified. So apparently our application was uploaded properly. Rural Prosperity Partners was involved with several others, and you see a typo if you're looking at the agenda. Josephine County was one of those, so I had that on there, and we did on one other, and it wasn't Josephine County. We did get where the portal was just misbehaving as we were uploading things, and so there were duplicate files uploaded, and it showed the file names, but the documents were there, and so they had this 1 week curing process last week where you couldn't add to your application, but if there were problems with the portal upload, then they allowed you to just email that stuff in. So thankfully we didn't have that problem with Harney County, and I still think we're very well positioned. Unfortunately, the $1.5 million program is oversubscribed at $4 million. So it's oversubscribed by 2.5 million, and we don't know if there's going to be additional allocation out of the broadband fund. There are monies in the broadband fund from the Universal Service Fund to the tune of about 7 million total, and so the allocation could be changed, and but we haven't heard a word. So um, we're just going to have to wait. Last word that we heard was they probably expect the awards to be announced sometime in April. So we're still a couple of months away from hearing on the BTAP application, but Harney County's application was pretty strong. So but you never know. You just never know. so so we'll keep our fingers crossed about BTAP. And for those of you who aren't keeping up BTAP, I'm sorry, it's the Broadband Technical Assistance Program. So that's a grant program for technical assistance to help prepare jurisdictions for BEAD. So the big infrastructure dollars that are coming out. There's an interim there's an interim program called the Broadband Deployment Program, which is ARPA funds. And we're going to talk about that next. But that's likely to launch well before uh, the BTAP can become effective. So the technical assistance that we'll be able to get funded won't really likely help us any with BDP, the Broadband Deployment Program, the ARPA funds, but will set us up to hopefully be able to take advantage of the BEAD in a better way. So we're excited about that, and Commissioner Dora was involved in that, and you know, GEODC is the sponsor for all of that, and so we're excited we were able to get that done.
I'm just glad that when I hit the submit button for BTAP and then I heard from Rachel a little while later saying, Commissioner, everything's blank now. I just went up to check and I was like, OMG. I hate uploading to portals, and
I know. I wish we could just email it, but anyway. Yeah, I suspect they're going to get a lot of feedback about that dadgum portal, where and we had that happen with other BTAP applications that we were helping with, where you would submit it and it would just go away. I mean, you click submit and it would just be gone. So it was like an erase button instead of a submit button. And then we had this one instance where it was submitted. So it showed the file name was submitted, but there was no file there. So it's a mess. And hopefully they can get that all fixed before the next round of grant applications, which will be BDP. So yeah, there was a and that's why we tried to get done early, a day early. So we didn't have to it's 4:59 at a 5 o'clock deadline. And I think there were people who were right at the last minute submitting, and I just wouldn't want to be in that position at all. So BDP is the next big round. That's 150 some odd $1 million, 158 million, I think, is the total. And it's ARPA funds, and it's for infrastructure. So whereas BTAP was technical assistance, the BDP is actually for infrastructure. And it's 150 some odd million sounds like a lot of money, but that's not very much money when you're talking about infrastructure. So we expect it's going to be probably smaller, programs, maybe, and it will allow for some middle mile as long as it's enabling last mile. So they're, let's see, got somebody. I think somebody's on the old, and that may be where, because we sent out a new link. This is the new link. Some people may be on the old Zoom, Rachel's old Zoom. So hopefully not, because that was canceled. But anyway, I can't help that they are in the ether sphere somewhere where they're not supposed to be. So, um, BDP we expect will be, smaller infrastructure projects. And unlike BEAD, which will be where if you're going to bid on a school district, you're likely going to have to serve every address in that school district. So with BDP, it can be I'm sorry, I'm getting a call from it's just our heating and air folks at the office, and they're trying to give us a bid on a mini split. So a little distraction. I apologize. BDP can be just a subset, so it can be a specific project. Like if we say we want to hit just this area outside of Burns, and we're going to have to go 3 miles with middle mile to get there. That's the kind of project that BDP is going to be really good for. So, I would expect, rather than, these big projects, I would expect, we're talking probably 10 to $20 million projects at the most on BDP is what they're going to want to award, because there's only $158 million. So you've got a link in the agenda to the website. And the only thing that's on the website right now is how to prepare for the BDP application cycle. And it basically tells you the things that you need to have, if you're going to apply. And unlike BTAP had to be a public agency or a not-for-profit or a cooperative to apply for technical assistance. BDP, anyone, to include private sector, can apply. So ISPs can apply for BDP. So that's different. So that's a difference between those two programs. So in order to apply, you have to have a federal SAM system for award management, registration and ID number, FCC issued provider ID, and that's just for reporting, documentation of any official partnerships reflected by the application. So if there's a public-private partnership or a private-private partnership, you would have to have official documentation of that. The CostQuest Fabric ID, XY coordinates for each location to be served. And so this is where that CostQuest license comes in that, we hammered on everybody about getting by the end of the year, and then said at the first of the year, if you didn't get it, you can still probably apply. You have to have that for BDP. Project management plan and timelines, and then letters of support. So that's all on that. You can click on that link. It's a hyperlink in the agenda. You can click on that, see that list if you're interested. And I know we got some ISPs on the call. So any questions about BTAP or BDP so far? Nope. So the broadband office has what they call business hours, where once a month they schedule for different groups, and there's like government, that's where, Commissioner Dora, you would be invited to that one. There's an ISP one, there's a tribal one, and I'm not sure, it seems like there was another, but I can't remember what it would be. So, and maybe it was large and small government or county government and municipal government, different ones. I can't remember, but I know that there's at least one for government and one for ISPs and one for tribal entities. Uh, the broadband office has canceled those last minute the last 2 months in a row, so December and January. So we haven't really gotten any updates from the broadband office. So all of this I'm gleaning from conversations with other people and pulling from the website and that kind of thing. These are, this is where we're getting this information. We have heard that in the business hours for February, which they're supposed to have, we're going to get substantive information. So a lot of updates. So I am looking forward to the business hours that we're supposed to have. And I think for the ISPs, which is the one I'm invited to, it's next week. And we're hopeful that and now unfortunately, I think next week I am in Reno attending uh, a USDA Reconnect. Yep. So I won't be able to attend office hours. So if somebody else is going to attend the ISP office hours, I think Charles, you said maybe you were going to do that. I really would appreciate notes and updates. And if Crystal is going to record it, make sure that she sends me a link. I'm attending a USDA seminar on the Reconnect program in Reno. It's the only one in the United States for the Reconnect program, grant program this year, and it happens to be in Reno. So thankfully, it's not back east. But for those folks who are back east, that's pretty inconvenient to have to go to Reno in February for a seminar on how to apply for Reconnect. But the RPP team is going to be there. So, but we should get a lot more information out of those office hour meetings. All right. So if you're invited to one of those, I encourage you to attend. All right. BEAD, and this is where I expect we're going to hear a lot about BEAD. There are two things that are imminently pending, even though BEAD won't be open for applications and it won't be open for, we don't expect to see any money until next year. We do know that they are planning to open the challenge process shortly, and I don't know how that's going to work. And they're going to open the pre-application phase. And so in order to be qualified to apply for BEAD, whatever your entity is, and again, BEAD is like BDP, anybody can apply. So public sector, private sector, not-for-profit, cooperatives, government, anybody, any tribal entities, anybody can apply for BDP or the ARPA funds or BEAD. And BEAD is the big pot of money. I mean, this is the one that's over $600 million, almost $700 billion. You'll have to go through this pre-application phase and get pre-qualified to apply. And I think what they're trying to make sure of is that, if you're going to apply, you actually can do it. You can actually perform. So they don't want applications for somebody who, isn't registered as to do business in Oregon, or, hasn't ever done telecom and has, no resources to do that. And I think this may be where they asked for, and I don't know again, because we haven't seen what the pre-qualification looks like, but we know that there's going to be either a letter of credit from a specific bank or banks, a list of specific banks required, or a performance bond. And Senator Wyden actually got it changed, because at first it was going to be this letter of credit from a bank. And I think the total cost for the letter of credit was like, it was some stupid amount. It was like 25% or 20% of the total uh, build cost. Letter of credit, you would, in other words, as an entity, you would have to have that money in that bank to get this letter of credit to be able to apply. And what we all said to Senator Wyden was, no one's going to apply, because if there's a 25% match required minimum to participate in BEAD, and you have to have this letter of credit, now you're into it for 40 or 45% before you ever get a dollar. And these are some of the hardest to serve areas in the nation. And so we know it's going to be a stretch just to make the business plan work. And if you have to spend 25% and have a letter of credit that's tied up for the length of the construction, there's no way that would work. So Senator Wyden went back and hammered on the NTIA, and they agreed to allow the states to decide whether or not they wanted to use a performance bond as well. Performance bond is a lot cheaper. And so, a company like Charter could go in and say, look at our financials, this is who we are, we're good for it. And then we'll pay for a performance bond. It's a lot cheaper than this letter of credit. And so we think, I mean, in the draft rules that aren't approved yet, and that's, I think, what we're waiting on with BEAD, BEAD Volume 2. They said one or the other, that they would consider that. And so we're hoping that in the final BEAD Volume 2 that's approved, there will actually be that letter of or that performance bond option. So that may be one of the things where you have to demonstrate that up front. I don't know. We won't know until we get more information on the pre-qualification phase. So watch for that information. It may come out in this next business hours, and then we'll know. Then the next round of real work happens. So, okay, questions about BEAD? That was a lot. Just keep throwing stuff up against the wall, and you guys are just consuming it. Good.
Well, just so for BEAD, you've got to really have your plan, right? You've got to have it all laid out so you can.
I think if you're not working on it now, you're behind. The application window probably is going to be late this year, so you have time to get engineering done, but you should be working on it now. And most of the ISPs that I'm talking with already have kind of pre-identified areas that they're interested in, but there's still so much unknown about the rules, that I think people are just kind of, do we want to invest in all of this? Is it really going to be rigidly by school district, or are counties other than Lake County going to get this um, variance or well, it's a variance, an exception, because they said in the draft rules that they were going to enforce rigidly that if you took on a build, you had to build the whole school district, for Oregon, except this one county, because it had a large school district. And in the comments, I know that there were a lot of comments that said, hey, they're not the only rural school, rural county with really large school districts. You should allow that in other counties like Harney County, where we should be able to divide up a really large school district and say an ISP can do a subset of that, and that should be decided upon by the county. We don't know where those rules are landing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns still with the BEAD program because we don't have the final rules yet. And so people are trying to prepare as best they can, I think, but still not really knowing. All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about, Kevin, we're going to talk about the ACP next. That's next on the list. So, yep. So on the chat, Kevin's chatting in the chat. So any other questions, Commissioner? That was pretty good. Good question. So any other questions about BEAD?
No, I was just wondering how Kevin's chatting while he's driving.
Boy, voice transcription, I suspect. I'm bailing you out there, Kevin. I actually use that all the time. It took me a while to, get comfortable with it, but you just mash the little microphone and then you talk and it transcribes. Don't ask, don't tell. Shame on you. Voice transcription does work pretty well. Although the grammar sometimes, the periods and the ends of sentences don't translate as well. So you can kind of tell. All right. ACP is the Affordable Connectivity Program. This has been so during the pandemic, Congress threw money at broadband, and they created the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, the EBB. That program was, I think, up to $45 per month for eligible households as a subsidy for broadband. It was deliberately short term during the pandemic, and $75 per household on tribal lands. As the pandemic began to lengthen and it didn't seem like it was stopping and it was going to take a while for that to transition, they created as a follow-on program to the EBB, they created the ACP. So instead of the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, it was the Affordable Connectivity Program. The Affordable Connectivity Program is $30 per month per household. And then on tribal lands, it's $75 per month per household to subsidize broadband. And ISPs were strongly encouraged to provide a program that gave 100 meg service or more for around that subsidy amount. So households could get free or significantly reduced cost on broadband if they qualified. And then and the subsidy, it all went through the ISP. So the ISP qualified to be a partner in the ACP. The household qualified online, and there was this big push to get people registered and qualified online. You got a registration number, after you met one of the qualification criteria. And the most common was you had a child in school with free or reduced lunch, and that was the most common one. But there was this whole list of you were a certain percentage of poverty, and that one was harder to prove. But once you prove that, you got a registration number, and then you signed up for service with the ISP and gave the ISP that number. The ISP then charged the FCC for that amount. So the household didn't have to worry about it once they got qualified. It all was handled by the ISP. And I did the numbers. There are, as of December 31st in Oregon, and I couldn't get the number by county. I couldn't find it. But Oregon currently has 237,555 households enrolled in the ACP program. Everyone expected the ACP program to become a permanent program because it was well funded. And so, it had years worth of life in it. Congress has not reauthorized funds for the ACP. And so the ACP is running out of money, and it's going to be basically out of money in April. So February 7th was the last day that a household could enroll in the ACP And then April is likely the last month where they'll get the subsidy. So that means almost 250,000 Oregon households will see their broadband go from nothing or maybe $5 a month to 30, 35, $40 a month, which could be, I mean, that's a lot of money if you are really just barely scraping by every month. And so I know ISPs are working hard to try and figure out how to help those folks, but I mean, it costs to provide the service. So, it's not like the ISPs can just provide that free. And I did the math, and I'm going to do it again. Let me do the math. So, clear $237,555 55 households. If they're just none of them are tribal, which I know there are tribal, but let's just say they're all getting the $30, not the $75 times 30. That is a $7,126,650 a month subsidy that is going away for Oregonians. 7 million a month, 7.1 million dollars a month is going away as a subsidy for Oregonians alone. I mean, not to mention the other states. So, I mean, you can see where, and there's bipartisan support to fix it, but it just doesn't seem to be a priority with everything else that's going on in Congress. So, a couple of action items out of this. I would encourage you to write Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley in whatever role you're in and just express how important that is to your county and the people who live here. And then whoever, and I guess is it Cliff Bentz? Is that your congressman? Yep. I would also send one to Cliff. And just make sure that they understand that you're hoping that they make this a priority with whatever influence they have on the Hill to try and get this refunded. And then the second ask, people are going to, if it's not refunded or refunded, if it's not funded with more money, people are going to be upset, and they're likely to be upset at their ISP, and their ISP has nothing to do with it. Their ISP is trying hard. Whoever their ISP is trying hard to bridge this equity gap. And so just, if people call you and they vent, if you're in a position where people might be, in Commissioner Dory, you're going to be the obvious one. People are going to maybe be mad. Make sure they understand they should be mad at Congress, not, it's not even the FCC. The FCC has been begging, Congress to refund this thing. And so it really has to do with, Congress hasn't made this a priority. And so people need to be making noise with their elected officials. That would be helpful. And this is so the equity issue is the big issue, but I also want to bring up another issue. So if it's $7.1 million of revenue that might go away because these people might not be able to afford any internet, so they might actually go away. That could be a and I'll get to you. I see your hand raised, Brenda. That could be a $7.1 million a month revenue hit for internet service providers in Oregon. Now, what that means is that $7.1 million a month that is not available to build new infrastructure, that's not available to service existing customers. So the ripple effect of this thing going away is likely to be larger than what everybody is really thinking about on the service. Brenda, go ahead.
Joe, I was just going to ask, I know you said it's 237,000 households, but do we have any information on where those households are distributed?
It's hard to get like county specific information on the ACP. I looked and looked and looked, and I'm gonna look again. I know there's a site, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I've got it open on one of my like 700 tabs that I've got to open on my internet service provider or internet browser. But let me see if I've got it where I can find it pretty quickly. It was maybe the Benton Group or Benton Foundation. That sounds familiar to me. Had a really, really good website about ACP, and I'm not finding it. I had it open. Yeah, I'll look and see if I can find it. But let me Google real quick, or Bing.
Think I may have found it. I'll drop it in the chat.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there was ACP enrollment tool. What is the zip code there, Commissioner? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry.
97720.
So in 97720, they're saying the eligible households are 1,457 for that zip code. And they think there's 423 actual households enrolled. So there, in that zip code, which is, the bulk of it's not all the whole county, but because I think Hines has got a different one, maybe.
Well, actually, yeah, there's different zip codes for the different rural pockets of the places we're trying to address, and I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I know Crane and Diamond, and they all have different.
Yeah, so Brenda did find the tool and she put the link in there. So you can just bring that up and then put in a zip code, and it will tell you the total number of households, the total number of eligible households, and the total number of predicted and actual enrolled. And so it's the actual enrolled that you want off to the right. So, I mean, that's a lot of families, 423 households just in that one zip code. And that's the Burns, Buchanan area, Trout Creek. It doesn't include Hines off to the left. So, there's a bunch. Yep. Thanks, Brenda. That's the best tool that I've found. I haven't found one that'll do a whole county, but that one does by zip code. All right. Anything else on the ACP? Okie doke. Now, after all of that work and we don't know and uncertainty and, what's going to happen and ACP, the doom and gloom, here's something that's really cool. And if you look in the very top of the chat, I put it in the chat, we have a website. At the very top before the meeting started, I actually put this in there. 3 groups have started the Oregon Broadband Equity Coalition, OBEC, OBEC. And so it's Rural Prosperity Partners and Link Oregon and Oregon State University have partnered to form the Oregon Broadband Equity Coalition. The Oregon Broadband Equity Coalition is focused on digital equity in Oregon. And so we haven't seen a real concerted, coordinated effort focused on digital equity right from the state level. And so we've been talking about this group, these 3 founding partners have been talking about digital equity and forming some kind of coalition for almost 2 years. And we actually formed it, and it's a loose coalition. Everyone's invited. Just because we're the 3 founding members doesn't mean we're in charge. We're actually going to put a board together, and and so if you're interested in being involved in the digital equity push, this is a great way to do that. And if you want to send me your, just send me an email, joe@ruralprosperity.com, joe@ruralprosperity.com. Send me an email that you're interested in OBEC. I'll connect you with Victor at OSU, who is actually managing kind of that, or coordinating all the communication. We already had a meet and greet, and this was just to find out who's interested, and had almost 40 people show up at this meet and greet. It was fantastic, and did some breakout discussions about digital equity. When we think about broadband, we think about, well, I think about a stool, a three-legged stool. And the first leg of that stool is accessibility. And so this is getting the infrastructure to where we can actually hook you up. And that's what everybody's focused on right now with BDP and BEAD and Reconnect and all this infrastructure money is focused on just the first leg of the stool, and that's accessibility. But I mean, I guess you could sit on a stool with one leg, but it would be a little uncomfortable and precarious, right? So the second leg of the stool is adoption, and that's where affordability comes in. So helping people to actually get connected to the internet, adoption. So accessibility, adoption, and adoption includes this digital equity piece, which is affordability. It also includes, and it was really interesting, when I was on the Broadband Advisory Council, we did 2 statewide assessments of broadband during that 12-year period that I was on the Broadband Advisory Council. And part of that was we did adoption rates by ethnic group. So it broke it down. I mean, it was, male, female, households, singles, age groups, ethnic groups. And, so we had all this granular data about adoption of the internet. And then we did the same study several years later, just to see how far we'd come. And we were all excited because everybody had been doing so much work on, broadband adoption and some work on utilization, but we just, we wanted to see the progress. Where are we? And we had made a lot of progress. So in most categories, we had seen growth in adoption, which some of that was, people getting access who hadn't had access before. So it wasn't available before, and then the infrastructure was built to them. There was this real interesting, and it was disturbing, for the Hispanic population, the adoption rate went down. And so I started asking questions of my Hispanic friends, why? Why would the adoption rate for broadband go down when it can do so much for your families? And the answer was almost a ubiquitous, we don't trust the government. So there was this trust issue. So it's not always just affordability. Sometimes there are cultural issues that can cause people to not adopt, not connect to the internet. So, this second leg of the stool is not as simple as just making it affordable. And everybody wants to make, adoption simple, and it's not always simple. And then the third leg of the stool is the most exciting for me, and this is utilization. So availability, adoption, and then utilization. Utilization is where all the digital skills come in. So the internet becoming more than just entertainment, the internet becoming an enabler for families where people can get education and healthcare, connect with governments in ways that they never could before, all expand their brick and mortar business to a global online enterprise as well. I mean, all of these things that you can do that people don't know how to do unless somebody helps them with digital skills. So this is the leg of the stool I ultimately want to get to before I die is, as a state, I want us to be not as focused on infrastructure because the infrastructure is mostly taken care of. I want us to be focused on equity and full utilization digital skills. And that's also part of equity, making sure that everyone has the skills to use the internet. I remember the first time we started talking to my mom, and she'll be 86 next month. And she was just here. She visited last week, and it was just delightful to have her here. And when we first started talking to her about getting a Kindle, an Amazon Kindle, and she was like, "What am I going to do with that thing?" Now, man, she is on that thing all the time. She's got friends. She's reconnected with friends from high school, and my mother's almost 86. I mean, it's just a few days away from being 86. And so it has become this huge part of her life and her ability to connect and communicate with people outside of her home. And seeing that transition and that more full utilization. I mean, she still doesn't do it for telehealth yet. I don't know that she ever will, just because she's hard-headed. But that full utilization, seeing families leverage the internet to its best and highest use instead, and entertainment's fine. That's where I want us to get to. And so this is where OBEC comes in, this digital equity, starts to come in, formulating a sustainable approach as a state to address digital equity and digital utilization, digital skills issues. So if you're interested, that's the website in the chat box. Ping me, send me an email. We'll get you on the list. So, and there's actually a big kickoff meeting this Thursday. The official launch of OBEC, I think, is supposed to be this Thursday, maybe. I got to look and see if I actually I don't have an email from Victor yet, but that was the date we had set aside. So hopefully information. Victor was at the National Digital Inclusion Conference in Philadelphia last week, and today, yesterday was a national holiday, so Victor wasn't working as a OSU employee, but hopefully we'll get information on the OBEC launch before Thursday. All right. Any questions on OBEC? That's an exciting one. No? You can see I'm a little excited about OBEC. I think it's cool. All right, legislative updates. Last time we talked, we said there was no broadband legislation at all hitting the short session. That changed. House Bill 4040, which has already been amended and now passed out of committee, actually does away with the GARC, the Grant Application Review Committee, and puts that responsibility on the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council specifically. So there was concern about the GARC, and so I think the GARC will still be involved in the BTAP grant reviews. I think they're actually probably working on that right now for BTAP, but I think after BTAP, that they will go away, and that will become the responsibility of the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council. And that's the only change for broadband. House Bill 4040 also has some stuff in it about the state fair, but it's a cleanup bill. So, and if you're curious as to why GARC is going away, the GARC, it's not just the acronym was horrible. The GARC, Grant Application Review Committee, there were all other concerns about GARC. And so the legislature is apparently moving pretty quickly to put that responsibility on the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council, OBAC. Any questions about legislative updates? Last thing that we've got is the roundtable, and I know Commissioner Doerr wanted to talk a little bit about a really cool, it's not a project yet, but there's some hope for some movement in southern Harney County. So Commissioner Doerr, you want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. I wanted to just kind of throw out the fact that Link Oregon, had reached out to us to just let us know, and they're a lot of middle mile stuff, and they're well connected, and that they're in touch with the Nevada broadband office, and that it looks like they've got plans fairly far along, I guess, to put infrastructure heading up north toward the Oregon border in some ways. And so, more in the McDermott and what other area, Joe?
Oh, yeah, what was the one to the west?
Denio,
Yeah, there you
Denio
go. There you go.
areas. And so we're going to, make some little contacts just to hear more, because even though it's a different state, et cetera, I mean, if they have some decent basic infrastructure stuff heading up north, that could help our south end. So there's that to talk about. And also, I don't, Representative Mark Owens, we'll be talking with him after the short session, but in Harney County, we've recently had some awareness that our cell service, our regular basic phone cell service, is deficient in areas that used to be okay, and a lot more outages and things. And so what Rep Owens said is, we ought to talk about seeing how we can get a publicly funded, if possible, some infrastructure, because you need to have some good cell service, especially in these remote areas. So possibly some, multifunctional towers and infrastructure for public safety, emergency management, broadband, electric co-op, cell service, whatever makes sense, that can be have multiple benefits to some investment. Again, that's not been defined yet. So those are some bigger picture things. And then Joe, if you want to add more of what you think is relevant.
Actually, Commissioner, that was a good. I'll add a little bit more. So, but that was a good synopsis. This interestingly enough, it seems as if Nevada is going to fund this fiber line right up to the border, because these, McDermott and the other one, I can't remember how to say it, but they're right on the border with Harney County in Oregon. And so if we can get fiber right there, and there's a proposed lithium mine there near McDermott, it might be that we can convince the ISP who is building that fiber, who has already been identified to build that fiber, and they're out of Pennsylvania, and we actually have some common friends. And so we're hoping to be able to get a meeting with the ISP to where, as we apply for BDP and BEAD, we can start looking at Southern Harney County and bringing that fiber up north, up those two highway routes, which is basically either side of the Steens, if I'm remembering my map properly. And that could be transformative for Southern Harney County. And then ultimately, our goal, we would love to see that come all the way up to Hines and where you are. Thank you, birds. So,
I'm actually in Buchanan, but hey, yeah.
Yeah, that would, well, and so that would be fantastic. But, getting fiber, because it's the only way to do it is when we get these big infrastructure dollars. And so having the conversation now could really, really be timely. And so, well, we don't know. I mean, this is very early in the discussions, but hopefully we can get a conversation with the company the ISP that's out of Pennsylvania that's building that fiber for Nevada, and see if there's some interest in maybe going after some BEAD money or BDP money to go further north. So we'll keep you posted. Anything else, round table? Anything else going on, or any questions that anybody else has? Anything exciting? I know Justin with My Wave is traveling. He's so that's why he's probably not here today. But
We have Jeff Graham here from My Wave.
hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey,
So,
yeah, no, Justin's traveling, and I was up till 4 in the morning replacing a switch, so I'm a little done with updates right now. Those
Yeah, I
dang
get it.
Netflix.
I get it. Yeah. You know,
So
that's the way of things. And I I started off in the cable industry and cable, so hybrid fiber coaxial networks back in the Southeast in Georgia and Florida. And those networks, which, you know, the cable companies still use, are significantly more fragile than fiber networks. Fiber networks are wildly more reliable. And so it's been interesting to see the transition, but even with fiber networks, I mean, they rely on electronics and lasers and light and, going over glass and, so there's still points of failure and there's still things that happen. And sometimes things just break. So Jeff, I'm glad you made it through.
Joe, are you thinking we have Bryce Mertz here, and he's awesome at helping with mapping and things that sometimes need to be tailored for the work. So I'm just throwing that out as sort of more or less a reminder that he's really
Yeah,
good.
thanks.
Yeah, please let me know if you need help with anything.
Yeah, I actually I will. I'm gonna take a note and Bryce, at some point I think we're probably gonna need to chat. And if nothing else, we need to keep you updated on what's going on. What the plans are that are, coming out of, BDP and BTAP and Reconnect and how that might impact the county. So yeah, great to have you on the call. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
It's nice to see Charles here too from Charter.
Yep.
And
Charles has been ever since I, found Charles, because it was like, and I think he reached out to me and I'm like, Charles, I've been looking for a contact from Charter forever. And so he has been really, really faithful to attend since we got him on the list. So I appreciate Charles being here.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Commissioner. It's sorry, I've been listening and catching up, and do appreciate being involved in these conversations. We like to know what's going on, and we do serve Burns, and as you know, and we're always looking to see where we can build out from our existing infrastructure, since that's the easiest build to go do.
Yep. Yes, it is. Now, Charles, are you DOCSIS 3.1 or what are you in? Do you know what DOCSIS we're on in Burns?
Joe, that is a level of detail that is beyond my technical ability, but I think it's DOCSIS 4.
Oh, wow.
We actually did a significant technology upgrade in Burns the summer of 22, I think, and it was a kind of a test of technology that's starting to be rolled out in the rest of the country in Charter's network. But what that means is that as far as Charter's infrastructure in Burns, it's as high tech as it can possibly get.
It would be really helpful, I think, for this group to understand what your capabilities are, because there are different protocols for, and what I'm asking is, what iteration of the protocol that allows the data to be translated back and forth over the cable plant, what level are they?
Mm-hmm.
DOCSIS 3.1 was that was the gold standard, and DOCSIS 3.1 allowed networks to go technically to go to a gigabit down So 1,000 megabits per second down, and about it depends on how they allocated channels. 30 to 60 up megabits up load.
Mhm.
DOCSIS 4 actually is 10 gigabit capable, depending on how much, I mean, they may not have a 10 gig feed into Burns because it's not that big of a community. But if the technology is, if you've got DOCSIS 4, you've got the same gold. This is the new gold standard for DOCSIS cable deployments in the United States. And it's pretty exciting, and it allows for much faster uploads as well. So, Charles, it would be great if at some point you could just find out maybe, and we could put you on the agenda, and you could talk about what the DOCSIS 4 in specifically in Burns is capable of. I think people would really love to hear that. That would be cool.
Yeah, that happy to. Actually, I'm going through my archive of files here just to see if I could answer that question real quick for you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll chime back in or add it to the chat.
Well, we're pretty close to the end, but you could email me, and if you didn't want to do a presentation next month, if you just wanted to shoot me some bullet points, I'll send that out to the group, and just let them know what, because I had no idea you had maybe DOCSIS 4 and Burns. That's pretty incredible. So
It was done quietly.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool. It's super cool. All right. See, we're ending on a high note. Anybody else have anything else they want to add? That's pretty remarkable. In Burns, I mean, Portland just got DOCSIS 4, So, wow, that's pretty awesome. All right.
Well,
Yes,
maybe I see John Friedrichsen here. John, do you feel comfortable maybe at the next meeting just kind of giving us the 2-minute, spiel on how Harney ESD, how your connectivity is?
Yeah, I can give you some updates, but I mean, as far as the schools, the rural schools don't have, most of them have some, mostly broadband. They have, I think, 100 by 100 so far. We're working on fiber to fields, so we put it out to see if anybody bites on an E-rate. So we'll see what happens. That's why I just wanted to let you know that we are also working on getting that connectivity to the school. But if it means that whoever does it should also be looking at connectivity to the community and along the way. So we'll see what happens there.
And I don't know that we can. This has been one of the feedbacks that I've given to our senators about, and our congressmen about E-rate, the E-rate program. And I don't have a fresh example, but there was a town east of Hermiston, and and I'm not going to call any names. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but the school had fiber through E-rate, but the town was unserved. And the E-rate winner had no intention of building the town. And so, here was where public dollars, this is E-rate money, it's part of the Universal Service Fund that every phone provider in the United States provides. There's a tax. So if you have a phone, you look and there's a Universal Service Fund charge that goes into this federal pool, and a lot of things happen there. One of the things that happen, I mean, libraries are supported, schools are supported, with technology and connectivity out of the E-rate fund. The the low income telephone subsidy comes out of the E-rate fund. And so in E-rate, if we're going to spend public dollars, money that comes from the public to build fiber into a community that is unserved, there should be some expectation that either that fiber is going to also be used to serve the community, not just the school or the library. But if not, then it should be open for another provider to be able to buy connectivity, bandwidth, backhaul, transport back to the nearest exchange at market rates. And, we haven't seen any movement on that, but I don't know if there's any way to mandate that in the RFP or not, but that there's an expectation of service for the community, and I don't know if the E-rate rules allow for that, but it'd be pretty cool if, John, if you guys have an RFP going, that you specify that, or that if the winner of the E-rate bid to serve the school is not planning to build the last mile, that a couple of fibers of that publicly funded build to the school actually is made available to other ISPs as an open network. Or
Yeah, as far as I know, that I don't think we can stipulate that. We can just only get connectivity to the school.
yeah,
But it is a shame that it can't be, but I mean, I think whoever builds it should have that in mind and be
Yeah.
able to have drops as they build it. But I mean, that's expensive, and we don't have control over that portion, but it would be great that that's what should happen.
yeah, because we shouldn't be funding multiple fiber builds to a town like Fields. I mean, that's just middle mile. That's crazy. That'd be crazy talk. So,
Right.
all right. All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anything else, Commissioner?
No, I'm glad to see Ryan, our Harney County Economic Development person, represented as usual. And I don't have anything today. I'm really appreciate getting the BTAP application in there. So thank you, Rural Prosperity Partners. And we'll see what happens with that. And we'll just keep on trying to plan.
All right. Until next month, you guys be safe and have a good time. I appreciate each one of you. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Bye.